Welcome to Effortless English. Today's podcast is called Trick or Treat, another episode about Halloween. Okay, here we go. Trick or treat. The main event of modern U.S.-style Halloween is trick-or-treating, in which children dress up in costume disguises and go door to door in their neighborhood, ringing each doorbell and yelling, "Trick or treat!" The occupants of the house, who might themselves dress in a scary costume, will then hand out small candies, miniature chocolate bars, and other treats. Some American homes will use sound effects and fog machines to help set a spooky mood. Children can often accumulate many treats on Halloween night, filling up entire pillowcases or shopping bags. Tricks play less of a role in modern Halloween, though Halloween night is often marked by vandalism, such as soaping windows, egging houses, or stringing toilet paper through trees. Typical Halloween costumes have traditionally been monsters, such as vampires, ghosts, witches, and devils. In recent years, it has become common for costumes to be based on things other than traditional horror, such as dressing up as a character from a TV show or movie, or choosing a recognizable face from the public sphere, such as a politician. A child usually grows out of trick-or-treating by his or her teenage years. Trick-or-treating by teenagers is accepted, but generally discouraged with genial ribbing by those handing out candy. Teenagers and adults, instead, often celebrate Halloween with costume parties, staying home to give out candy, listening to Halloween music, watching horror movies, or scaring people. Visiting a haunted house is another Halloween tradition. A variant of this is the haunted trail, where the public encounters supernatural-themed characters or presentations of scenes from horror films, while following a trail through a heavily wooded area or field. Film studios often release horror films on or around the holiday in hopes of attracting people in search of scary entertainment. Recent examples include Saw and its sequels, a director's cut of Ridley Scott's Alien, The Grudge 2, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre prequel. Okay, let's talk about some of the vocabulary in this podcast. Halloween is a great holiday in America, lots of fun. I have a lot of great memories about being a child, trick-or-treating, dressing in costumes, and getting lots of candy. So back to the beginning of this podcast, I talk about trick-or-treating. Trick-or-treating is the name we give to going from one house to another, dressed in a scary costume, and asking for candy. And when the children come to the door, they knock on the door, and when someone opens the door, they say, "Trick or treat!" And then the adults at the door give them candy. So that's trick-or-treating in a nutshell. Okay, we mentioned that occupants give out candy, occupants of the house. An occupant is someone who lives in a building. They occupy the building, or in this case, home. And we mentioned that sometimes occupants give out miniature chocolate candies. Miniature means very, very small, a very small version of something that's normally bigger. So instead of giving out large candy bars, they give out those little tiny candy bars, miniature versions. I also talk about the word treats. A treat is a small candy or snack in this case, or its more general meaning means just something nice, something that's small but very nice, very pleasant, kind of like a small little gift. All right, I mentioned that some houses have sound effects. A sound effect means like a tape or a CD that plays noises from life. They sound real. They're not real, but they sound real. Movies use them a lot. So maybe they have the sounds of chains, rattling, or the sound of a ghost. Whoa. So they have some kind of scary sound effects. They might also have a fog machine. Fog is similar to clouds, so it's basically like a cloud, but low to the ground. In fact, here in San Francisco, we have a lot of fog naturally. But you can also buy a fog machine. It creates these kind of low clouds that come out of your house, and it looks scary on Halloween. I use the word spooky in this podcast. Spooky means scary. And I also mentioned that children accumulate a lot of candy. If you accumulate something, it means you get a lot of things. You get more and more and more. So it's the idea of increasing, getting more and then more and then more. It's kind of like collecting, getting and keeping things. All right, I mentioned the word vandalism, that Halloween is marked by vandalism. Vandalism are kind of small tricks, small destruction, basically. It's when, for example, children throw eggs at a house, or when they destroy a mailbox, or they write graffiti. So it's little small acts of destruction, which we also call pranks, but the general term is vandalism. All right. I mention later on in the podcast that many people dress as ghosts or vampires or witches or devils. These are all kinds of scary monsters, some of them from movies, some from kind of traditional stories. So anyway, people usually dress as scary characters, but not always. They also sometimes dress as recognizable figures. Recognizable means basically famous. So someone might dress as George Bush, which actually I guess that is scary. Or they might dress as another politician or a famous star or something like that. All right. We mentioned that teenagers generally do not trick or treat, that as children get older, they grow out of trick or treating. If you grow out of something, it means you become too old to do it. So trick or treating is really for smaller children, up to middle school. After middle school, it's not accepted really. High school students who trick or treat, they're kind of teased a lot. That's what genial ribbing means. Genial means friendly. Ribbing means teasing. So usually we tease people if they're too old and they're trick-or-treating because it's supposed to be for smaller children. All right, I mentioned that some people go to a haunted house. Haunted means scary in a general meaning, but the more specific meaning means there are ghosts in the house. So a haunted house is a house that has ghosts. And at Halloween, many adults will go to almost really a professional haunted house. They can be very professional and quite scary with lots of costumes and animation. In fact, me and Tomoe and my friends Kristen and Watt, we are all going to a haunted house tomorrow night. So maybe I will do a podcast about the haunted house. It should be fun. I love haunted houses. They're a lot of fun. So I'll let you know about that and maybe talk about that in a future podcast. Okay, finally, I mentioned that people also like to watch scary movies. And I mentioned that right now there are several scary movies out. Texas Chainsaw Massacre prequel, for example. A prequel is a story that comes before another movie or another book. So the story begins in a time that's actually before the other movie. For example, Star Wars. We had the normal 3 movies, the original 3 Star Wars movies. Then the most recent movies are actually prequels. They are about Darth Vader when he was younger. So those movies are prequels. The opposite of prequel is sequel, and that means a story that comes after another movie or book. Okay, that's it for today's podcast. At the moment, the Effortless English Club is not accepting free trials. So, unfortunately, you have to pay if you want to join at the moment. However, next month, sometime next month, maybe middle of November, we will open free trial memberships again. So, you can try Effortless English free for 1 month. Probably in November. I'll let you know. When you're a member, of course, you get the text, the full text of each podcast, article, or conversation, and also each learning guide. In addition to text, it also has the key words, the key vocabulary explained. So it makes it easier to understand the podcast. Okay, good luck. Keep reading lots of interesting things. Keep listening to interesting things. Relax and enjoy the process of learning English. That is so important. Do not suffer. It should not be painful. You should enjoy it. You should love it. If you don't, you're doing something wrong. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye.